This is Political Core, the non-PC edition of The Aaron Cruz Show, where you decide the topics. The only place where you get the news you want from the people you trust. We are your balanced and accurate information resource.
Good evening and welcome to the Aaron Cruz Show, coming to you from Palm Springs, California. This is Political Core. I'm your hostess, Aaron Cruz. Thank you for joining me. Tonight's topic, woohoo! I was struggling with this one because there are so many things going on, and I know last week we talked about all of the sexual harassment allegations and what those kinds of interactions entail. And I was really struggling to come up with a topic tonight because there are so many things going on. But I did come up with something, and it's quite interesting, actually. You're never going to believe it, as most of our topics usually are. It's about fake news. So tonight's topic is the death of fake news. You got it. We're going to talk about that slow death that's happening. Or did Donald Trump just murder it? I'm so thrilled to be able to talk about this tonight because I have been pushing for a long time, as many other patriots have, for transparency in the media. I mean, something that I know, I've been calling for some time, as well as a few others I'm aware of, is where the sources come from that the mainstream media is reporting on. Many times, many of you I know are on different forums, you're involved in different chat rooms, you may be in Facebook groups, you might be on Twitter, in chat groups, and whatnot. But many of you also go on to local blogs, patriot blogs, and I have a blog, Merit of Truth, at blogspot.com. And when we, as bloggers, or even in social media, when we're talking about a subject, what do we usually do? We provide information. We provide backup about what we're talking about. Sometimes it's a very casual conversation, and so we might not. But on the whole, what do we have to provide? We have to really provide where we're getting our information from, because otherwise, what's the legitimacy of what we're talking about? Where did the data come from? Is there any integrity in the data, or is it somewhat biased? Is the perspective bias? We don't know. So that's something we as people, when we're activists, especially interacting on a topic, we provide data, we provide numbers, we provide sources. We don't just quote the sources, we provide links, we provide the actual backdrop for the information that we're talking about, because otherwise context is lost. True context. Also, the foundation of what we're talking about is shaky. And especially when we're talking about politics or community issues or other items that are very pertinent to the longevity of our great nation and our republic, we have to be sure that the integrity of our information is solid. And if it's not, and not something that we're talking about, that we're providing what we're talking about so people can understand context. And then we can, from that context, have good conversation and be productive in our interaction. And wasting time isn't on our watch. I don't know about you, but many of us are busy. So we want to make sure that our conversations are productive. And so we provide that context. So that way we don't waste time. People have better understanding what we're talking about. Something we don't see with the mainstream media is that data, is that foundation, is the information to provide context. Because generally, on the whole, if you read a story, and we talked about this a couple weeks back, when we were talking about when we were discussing a couple of Republicans who were kind of going rogue, is the context of the stories that we're talking about these individuals, because the foundation was shady. The MSM, the mainstream media, major media news outlets, I'm not talking about, bloggers and, people who are doing podcasts or small reaches. I'm talking about the big conglomerates that have a lot of money and a lot of power and a lot of connect, yeah? Who have the ability to get massive amounts of information and actually get the sourcing that they need. They're providing very little in terms of that foundation. So what we see is these individuals reporting, and they're giving us a lot of information, a lot of words, many, many words down the page, perspectives, angles. This report, or so-and-so talked to so-and-so, and they were talking about such and such said this, and such said that, and this was done, and that was done. Unless we have the backdrop, unless we have the foundation, unless we're able to really see the context, every conversation that we're having about that piece is automatically by default shaky. So what I've been calling for, and what many other patriots have been calling for, is the data. So when somebody, like a major media news outlet, comes and they say, the employment numbers are in. And then not only do they go into the employment numbers, but they'll dig deeper. But where did they get the deeper from? Which report is that actually from? Because we have, as a nation, we have many, many, many different agencies. And of course, these news outlets oftentimes do cite the source and the agency, and they may talk about the report, but they're not telling you, they just tell you the numbers. They aren't giving you the actual link to the data, link to where they came up with their numbers. Most of what we get is regurgitated from maybe a presser, is regurgitated from, some other report that came out and somebody was taught. I mean, it's very vague, and it creates a unstable foundation for good conversation and productive movement in terms of our ability to create good, constructive policy. Locally, we get a bad interpretation from maybe a whole bunch of news and media outlets on a particular subject, and the interactions, they're not stable. So yes, we've been pushing for links in mainstream news. And this last week, I put out a couple of tweets. I saw a couple of other people do too, calling for Donald Trump to encourage news media outlets to provide actual sourcing, not just name the source. But this is 2017. It's very easy for them, if they're writing a report, to click link right on that report name, okay, and embed a link to where they got the data, whatever, State Department or federal department or whatever it is that they've derived this information from. Now, if they're sourcing, a tweet, they don't seem to have a problem putting the tweet in there. When they're talking about gossip news, when they're being the next Entertainment Tonight on the Washington Post about what so-and-so congressperson said about such and such other person, I mean, they don't have a problem embedding that tweet. So there shouldn't be a problem when it comes to these other reports where they're talking about bills, they're talking about legislation and tax reform. It shouldn't be difficult for them to provide the link to the actual proposed legislation, to the actual types of amendments or votes that they're referring to. Historical votes, they should be able to put links in the story about maybe a historical vote that they're referring to. This is not rocket science, folks. To expect mainstream media, big news outlets to provide sourcing for their news and ensure that they're public. Because look, You may be boycotting CNN, but a lot of the liberal population is not. You may be boycotting CNN or any other organization, and I'm going to tell you, sure, they may have lost a lot of viewership, but there are regular folks who don't see the media like you do and actually go to these people for news. And when they see Donald Trump saying fake news, they're like, oh God, fake news. Yeah, the news. But they're still going to go to their, whatever's on their login for their web, internet. What am I? I'm looking for a word. They're still going to go to their homepage and they're going to look up their email, and there's going to be that news article right on Yahoo News or whatever news outlet that they're using right there that's going to be on the backdrop. They're still going to look at that. And what better than to ensure the integrity of the information that's being provided to the general public than to provide data, sourcing, links for maybe the uninformed or those who just don't have time. It may be that so many people, this is another thing that I see, is so many people just get that first glimpse headline and they just kind of read that first paragraph or two and they just move on. And then when they're talking about a subject, that's really all they bring up. They don't know about the issue. They didn't dig to look to see if it's even valid. They took it because that news source is that news source, and it's a big, strong, powerful company that has a loud voice. They took it as such, and they believed it and swallowed the blue pill or the red pill or whatever you might call it and ran with it. It's 2017, folks, and we need to demand that these people provide actual sourcing. So, what happened today? Well, we had a great morning. The White House came out. Now, this is a mixed bag. Because the White House came out is about Utah. There's all to do about Donald Trump. He was going to sign the land back to the people, and some people were, oh God, what's going to happen? And all of the fake news was in arms. I mean, just up in arms. And you couldn't get a straight story out of the whole thing. It was propaganda, green initiative. It was climate change people freaking out. You name it. And that is allowed to happen. Why? Because the information that we are receiving, the information that we are fed from these large media outlets is lacking. If it had substance, if they had to back up their report with actual information, or if they did back up their report with information, people might be able to more eloquently sort that information in their own mind and be more balanced in their approach to looking at the issues. Now, this is an uphill battle I've been on. This has personally been an uphill battle that I've been on, because I have been writing, and my new book that's come out, it's on pre-sale, Revolution America. You can go to erincruz.com, ERINCRUZ.com, and pre-order it right now. It'll be out December 15th. One of the things I talk about is communication. I mean, it's a communication book. And how is it that we as people, because politics are people, media are people, we're all people interacting. How is it that we as people can come together and find common ground? How do we do that? Especially when we have an entire major, I mean, do you realize what media is? Media fuels advertising, it fuels and drives our economy, and politics, everything. I mean, commerce, you name it. I mean, it's media is huge. Now, what makes them money? Clicks make them money. Viewership makes them money. When you go on their site and you click and you look and all those ads, okay, they're pulling in revenue. But the thing is this, how do they get you to go there? The headline. How do they keep you on their page? Baiting you, giving you taggy lines and inflammatory statements and stories that have been either embellished or inflated, exaggerated, using flashy words which are enhanced to draw you in and have you read further. And I'm not agreeing that there isn't a place and time to have a story that draws you in further and really connects the reader with the information. I think that's great. But in let's put this in perspective. When it's manipulating the minds of man and manipulating our government and manipulating the vote, manipulating the information to the direction that whatever person or party or agenda is there, it's just not right. But the unsuspecting reader who sees the title and reads on and keeps going, they don't think about that. And then they take this information at its word, at its face value with no depth to it, and they believe it. Most people believe some of it. Okay, and there is a lot of truth to what's being told on some of these media websites. Some of it is complete malarkey. But the fact of the matter is this, is media has a lot to make, a lot of money to make. And they're also now losing a lot of money. So what can we do as people? We can push for them to be transparent in their reporting, provide data and information to substantiate their claims. I'm not saying that the entire article should be lit up with backlinks on where they get their data, but come on, if you're writing a story on job reports, you should be able to put the different aspects of job reports in there, just not what so-and-so congressman said to such and such congressperson about whatever vote that happened that you don't even provide the data to. So we can substantiate whether or not that was the actual vote. I mean, come on, people. Let's be a little smarter about this. So when we saw today about Donald Trump and this whole land issue, I mean, the media went wild with exaggerations, inflammations, and it's just tragic. Why? They want to draw you in because the only way they get viewership is to draw you in, and that's the only way they get money. And so they draw you in with taggy baiting on both sides, and people get interested, and it draws interest, and then you get in there and you're digging around. But they do it via emotion. They do it via emotion, and it's just not right. And so what we saw today was something I thought was phenomenal, and I see as a slow death, possibly even a quick strike down of fake news. Fact, this is from the White House, directly in their email blasts that they send out. Everybody can sign up for it. I know some people don't even like to go on that site because of what happened under the Barack Obama administration. They just don't even want to be on there. But the thing is this, get information from everywhere. If you're just going to read CNN, or you're just going to read Bloomberg, or you're just going to read a Patriot blog or Fox News, doesn't matter who it is, find context. Find context within local orgs. Find context in the White House itself. I'm not saying we should trust just government spoon-fed meals either. I'm going to be quite honest with you. That trend could be very dangerous. We've seen what that's done over the globe, where people, all they're given is state-run media. So there has to be a balance. But what I'm seeing here is fantastic. Their title up at the top is Another Day, Another Record. And, they talk about tax cuts, yada, 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 yada. What they want to go into here, and I love the title, Fact versus Fiction on Federal Monuments. Just love it. So it says here, quote, President Trump visited Salt Lake City, Utah yesterday to announce two major proclamations modifying the boundaries of Bears Ears and Grand Staircase National Monuments. Now, I love this. Why do I love this? Because on both Bears Ears and Grand Staircase National Monument, there are links. Links to what? Links to other stories about those topics. And it's not just those links that are other stories. It's phenomenal because if you open it up, there are more links. It's just wonderful. And I think that that's how it should be done. As usual, quote, as usual, there's plenty of misinformation making the rounds. Here are a few quick facts to correct the record. Now, I'm going to end that quote right there. That right there, you also have to remember, what are facts? Facts from the source. Facts from a White House perspective. Okay, we'll go on. Quote, myth, no president has ever shrunk a monument. Fact, monuments have been shrunk at least 18 times by presidents on both sides of the aisle. You know what would be really great is if they had a link to that. Myth, this move will sell or close national parks. Fact, no national parks are under review, and the administration admittedly, adamantly, my eyes are going bad, adamantly opposes wholesale transfer of any public lands. Myth, the review, wouldn't it be great if there were a link there? Myth, the review was done behind closed doors. Fact, and that is a tagline, and actually, we're not on to fact yet. That is a tagline that I'm seeing the Democrats use. That's almost another new Pizzagate. I was saying misconduct is the new Pizzagate. What do I mean by that? Misconduct, Pizzagate. Pizzagate was used as a code term for pedophilia, and pizza was. And so when we say Pizzagate, we're talking about code word pizza for pedophilia. When I say misconduct is really, what it's saying is that there was an impropriety. Many times when we see misconduct in government, federal laws have been broken or provisions have been broken, and accountability needs to be had, and we are not seeing that accountability. So misconduct is a term that I think is being manipulated to soft speak federal and state crime in government by government officials, improprieties that should be held accountable, held to the wall, and people let go at the very least. And so misconduct, that is another new Pizzagate. This term, the review was done behind closed doors. The vote was done behind closed doors. The bill was written behind closed doors. That is now another Pizzagate that Congress is using, that media outlets are using to help propagate doubt in the current administration, and we have to shut down that doubt. We cannot allow that doubt. I'm going to go on. Quote, fact, Secretary of the Interior Ryan Zinke personally held more than 60 meetings with local stakeholders, including numerous tribal groups. I would love to see a link on that. Okay, now it says, quote here, the media is exactly right on one point, though. This is a significant decision by the president, worth reading about in full. Guess what? There's a link. Ha 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 ha. Da 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 da. We open that link, and what is there? There is an entire document here. And it goes down, and it talks about, it's called President Donald Trump Stands with Local Communities Against Government Overreach on Land Management. Ha! I love it. Quote, the Antiquities Act does not give federal government unlimited power to lock up millions of acres of land and water, and it's time we ended this abusive practice. Quote, end quote. President Donald Trump, I love it. Okay, so we go down here and it says responsible land management. President Donald Trump is modifying 2 national monuments to continue to protect objects of significance while prioritizing public use and access. So what it is the media has blown it well out of proportion about these 2 large properties, and they have manipulated the minds of man to push their agenda for the need for people to click more on their links and make them more money. That's what it comes down to. It does not come down to the issues. No, it doesn't. Because if it came down to the issues, media wouldn't be inflaming. They would be providing information, data, links, true information, which would ease the minds of man, encourage good communication, and citizen involvement. That's not what we saw yesterday. So as we go down through this, document, I'm going to quote something here. Quote, a transparent review process. President Trump and his administration are being open and transparent in the review of monuments. The president's proclamation follows an open and transparent review process originally initiated by President Trump's Executive Order 13792, review of designations under the Antiquities Act. Wouldn't it be great if there was another link there? No, there's not, but there should be. Why? Because I think that this too, the president has the ability, with the information he provides, to allow citizens to see for themselves. Yeah, we can go back and we can look up that link, but that takes us a lot of time. Somebody's already writing this. Somebody's already putting this together. Why can't they drop link there? They can. And I think that this is another example where government can improve, streamline, allow citizens to have more access to more information. If we could click on that link, on that number, on that Executive Order 13792, and it took us right to another open window where we could scroll down that. Now, they quote part of that Executive Order, but if we had actual link to that Executive Order, this would quell the thoughts of man. Why? Because if you're somebody coming in here doubting this, and you just read their little excerpt, it's not going to feed you. Do you think that you're going to get distracted by the dishes that need to be done, or you have to get back from your lunch break at work, and you don't have time to read that? You may be thinking about what's said in the next bullet point, and not have time to go back and look, and information that you could have really been just quieted down in your mind and settled an issue or what have you, could have been done very easily and taken one less question out of context. Because here this next section says, quote, President Trump's Executive Order limited the review to monuments designated after January 1, 1996, and over 100,000 acres in size, or monuments that Secretary Zinke deemed to have been created without adequate public input. The review only covers only 27 of the more than 150 monuments that the Act has been used to designate or expand. Now, again, if we had that executive order, we could go ahead and just really quickly look at what that means and what that's referring to, because what they're talking about is the executive order. Okay, and then it goes down to talk about, more of the process, the tribal coalition, Salt Lake, and whatnot. But what I'm proud about is that I think the government in this new administration is really trying to provide transparency. This link from that other prior story is fabulous, just fabulous. It's a start. So what we should do is we should continue to ask for links to those meetings, ask for notes to links to those meetings. I mean, they're all in here. They're all on these websites. But if you scroll down, below, and I'm going to put this in our notes, this article, because if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, you're going to see how big this website is. And when you click on any one of these links at the bottom of this page, the whitehouse.gov, it goes to another page, which then has another set of big chunks of information. So we have all of this at our fingertips. How much easier it is for them to, as they compile this information, to just plug it in, backlink it for us, because they're getting their information from somewhere. Government and mainstream media. So what I'd like to do is, tonight's topic is, the death of fake news. We need to call for the awakening of freedom of information. We have the information. Government is providing so much data. We're paying for all of this data to be provided and tracked. Watchdogs do their jobs and scour through it, great. But when we're spoon-fed as if a nation by the government, and there are all these reports by media when they get the information from the government on all these reports. We need to demand that they provide that backdrop, that they provide all those sources, because we don't know. We're just believing blind, and that's not okay. And so one more way to kill fake news, one more way for the great awakening of information is to just provide those links. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and provide this story. This is just an example. I gave an example 2 weeks ago when I was talking about, I think it was Jeff Flake, and just the atrocities that were coming out of the mainstream news, just how they were slamming the GOP, applauding Jeff Flake. I mean, it's just amazing the reports that they had, and the news was inflating like crazy, right? Calling out sources, all this stuff, and then we have all these accusations and improprieties, quote-unquote misconduct, the new Pizzagate, misconduct issues, accusations up the yin-yang. Wouldn't it be great to kill fake news and to demand that we have a great awakening? Information, enlightening our minds with data and resources. That would just be awesome, huh? So I'm going to provide this. This provides you a good step forward on understanding the process, what the government is doing right. You'll be able to see it for yourself. It's actually quite lovely. And I am proud. I just would like to see and encourage you to push for those links to be put in there by government officials. It wouldn't take them very long. And then also encourage Donald Trump to press the press to provide data, to provide those same levels of respect to their readers, to the viewership, to the American people. You know, the press, freedom of the press, reporters, journalists, investigative journalists, large organizations who've been given a free pass to the front row in White House pressers. These people are, they're the liberty teeth. They're the people who, many countries don't have a free press. They don't have a free press. They have state-run media. And what did Barack Obama do with the press? He pretty much manipulated them. There wasn't one photo that would come out of him that wasn't filtered by his team. He had probably one of the most advanced campaigns of our time in terms of information filtering and propaganda manipulation of the minds of man. Yes, he did. And what came out, everything we saw was regurgitated from AP. Nothing that came out of the White House was unfiltered. It just wasn't. He didn't allow it. And I would say that media was turned into a large level government operation. And this may be on fringe for you, but I believe that Barack Obama made the press into a position where it was essentially like state-run media. He had them in his pocket. And as we see, he still does in many cases. Now, there are a few news agencies we've put on a lot of pressure this last week, and I'm really thrilled. I have to give props. I have to give credit where credit is due. CBS, MSNBC, or it was just NBC. There are a couple of news outlets who are standing up against their people who are in positions of power, providing the public information. And these people who are doing this, providing this information, are paid very handsomely. They have entire teams that look up information for them, verify stories for them. And if you're a presenter and you're handed information to present, hopefully you have the ability to look over the information and question the people who are, providing. and confirm. And if you've done that, well, then you've done your job, right, as a presenter. But if you're actually one of the people who plays a part in getting the information and you so-called verified it, or you're using it as propaganda to manipulate the minds of man, and you're doing it on the platform of a large media outlet, and misleading the people and manipulating our stock markets as a result, you're doing this, the public and the citizenry, you're a criminal. That's a criminal act right there. And the organizations who hire them have to be held to standard, and we see that these two large organizations are doing their best to stand by what's right. And sure, they would be in the hot seat if they didn't, but the fact of the matter is that they did a preemptive strike, and they decided, you know what, this is big enough for us to say, hey, you need to be, I'm not going to say names, you need to be, so-and-so, you need to be suspended for 4 weeks. And you need to be suspended for 4 weeks, no pay, while we do an investigation. We have to handle this. Workplace sexual harassment, workplace assault, sexual harassment, it's against the law. Now, not only is it against the law on a federal level, it's against the law on a state level, and an employer has an obligation and responsibility to reprimand its employees, possibly including up to and including termination. And I'm very proud to say that these two large organizations that we saw this last week, they took action. It's just good news. That is great news. This is just a small step, but the thing is that it takes a lot of little baby steps to get anywhere. As long as we keep moving forward, as long as there is goodwill, and the objective is, we shouldn't want, this happened with me today. This is a very good example. We shouldn't want something to win or to be pursued because it's our agenda. We should want the truth and information. We should want people to be provided the documentation and information that they need to make a good decision. And what happened to me last night was this, is I posted, I forwarded Omar Navarro's complaint, which was that he had gone to a chamber meeting and or an event, and was meeting with constituents and small businesses who were at that event. And the chamber representative got very angry because she was jilted. She felt like she was not, representing the chamber in any pictures. She was, although she is a representative and it's her job to interact with those who come to the events, and she did not want to endorse or any of Omar's people to think that he was endorsed by that chamber. Now, the things she said then after were racially based. They were completely inflammatory. She herself looks to be a black individual. I can't say African American because I don't know if she's from Africa, but I will say she has very, very dark skin. Omar Navarro, if you know him, he is Hispanic, he is Latino, and he has fair skin. She said he is very fair skin. If you don't know about his funding efforts, basically he's funded by the alt-right. And that right there, she went into this whole racial slur. I was really upset. I was beyond upset, and I looked at this and I thought, I can't allow the inequality, the blatant racism against a candidate, somebody who's standing up against a lifetime politician who lives in a corner of a district and really has said very little that makes sense. Maxine Waters, she has said very little that makes sense over the last several years. She says the outlandishest things and to think she's helping write policy. And she also has allowed her constituency to struggle. It's just very, very difficult to see her continue to sit in a seat. I don't see any other people who are running who could do a better job than Omar Navarro. And I believe he should be given a chance. I don't stand on all of the issues he believes fundamentally over time, but I will say that the platform he's running on, which is the platform of Donald Trump, for the most part, is something that I think that district really, truly needs. And Omar himself is really, I think, wanting to help the people in that district. And he's gone out on a mission. He's reaching to the other side, and the other side kicks him in the nards. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Why? Because they don't like where his funding might come from, and they assume that it's all alt-right. They assume that because people are white, they're all alt-right. That's not true. They assume that Donald Trump supporters are all alt-right. That's not true, as we've seen so many people have moved over to the Republican Party just so they could vote for Donald Trump. They're Democrats, even, who voted Donald Trump. And so it's not just all alt-right. Generalizing and making racial slurs, I felt was so wrong. So I did a post. Unfortunately, I tagged the wrong, in providing my link, I provided the wrong link, and that can happen. This is what I wanted to talk about. Mistakes can happen in news, in media, with individuals, corporations, and in government. They can happen. The very best thing to do is to shed light on those mistakes and to keep moving forward. So the chamber came back to me and they said, this is the wrong chamber. My guess is they got a big backlash. I did not mean to put their link, the wrong link, and I said, I'm so sorry, and then I did a public announcement apologizing, saying that I had inadvertently put the wrong chamber. The correct chamber is Gardena Chamber of Commerce. Unfortunately, Gardena Chamber of Commerce has me blocked, or they deleted their page, one or the other, and I could not tag them. Now, Torrance Chamber, whether or not they're aware or agree with, obviously they're aware of what the party over in the Gardena Chamber did, but, you know, whether they're aware of it or they agree with those people, that's irrelevant. What I did was I tagged the wrong chamber. Okay. I apologized. And I also put out a notification to all of my followers, all the individuals involved. Now, you know, it's one thing to make an honest mistake and to admit fault, to correct it. I deleted the other post. I reposted. It's another when we have nefarious institutions and news media outlets who are knowingly, willingly, and in matter of fact, quite possibly being fraudulent in their claims to push agenda. That's against the law. It's against the law, especially when it manipulates our stock markets. Politics often does manipulate the stock market when certain reports come out. And we have to be very careful as citizens to not knee-jerk, to think about what we're doing, think about what's been presented, and to act, not react. And so there you have it. You know, we as people, as citizens, we have a responsibility to ourselves, to the future of this nation, to our children and our families, to do the right thing, to make the right choices, to push the right forms of agenda. Now, agenda isn't everything. If we want to look for something, we should be looking for truth. So in that, we should push these mainstream media news outlets, even if we don't agree with them, even if we don't agree with their spoon-feeding their people. We should still demand and push for them to provide the information to their public who's viewing the information and believing it as truth. And also hold government accountable to provide even more information and links, backlinks to the data that they provide as well. Because what we have and what we should be looking to have, okay, the ideal, people, is not to have Trump having to stand up there wasting his time about talking about fake news. We shouldn't have to have that. But what we're seeing is he has to, because it's so bad. Obama created this state-run media that's now in the Democrat pocket, and it's so bad it's still there. So he has to stand up there and say, fake news, this is fake news. No, the real news is this is what we're doing. No, we're not replacing this person, this is what we're doing. And, you know,